CNN and the New York Times held the fourth Democratic presidential debate, and it was historic.
The top 12 Democratic presidential candidates are at their positions behind the podiums. This is a record number of candidates for a presidential primary debate.
While the 12 candidates technically qualified for the stage, on the day of the debate, 7 of them were polling at under 3%. And let's be honest, none of these people will be the Democratic nominee in 2020. Especially Andrew Yang, who is less concerned about looking like a presidential candidate and more concerned about selling $15 math pins to the Yang Gang. I mean, if you want to sell your merch, don't be so obvious about it. So the whole reason for having these debates is for the candidates to convince voters that they are the best person for the job, but instead, they spent most of the debate railing against the president.
In my judgment, Trump is the most corrupt president in the history of this country.
This president, and I agree with Bernie, Senator Sanders, is the most corrupt president in modern history, and I think all of our history.
He is indeed the most corrupt and unpatriotic president we have ever had.
This president has not been putting America in front of his own personal interests.
We have to impeach this president, and the majority of Americans not only support impeachment, they support removal. He should be removed.
This presidency is going to come to an end.
Impeachment is the way that we establish that this man will not be permitted to break the law over and over without consequences.
If we do not hold him to account, if there is not justice, not only have we failed this moment, our Constitution and our country, but we have failed everyone who has sacrificed and laid their lives down on the line.
He has committed crimes in plain sight. I mean, it's shocking.
We have a constitutional duty to pursue this impeachment.
And then there's Tom Steyer, the billionaire liberal activist, who was ahead of the curve in the drive to impeach President Trump.
2 years ago, I started the Need to Impeach movement because I knew there was something desperately wrong at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, that we did have the most corrupt president in the country.
I think you mean in history, but whatever. But yes, Tom Steyer's claim to fame is that he spent millions of dollars on his Need to Impeach campaign, including an ad from October 2017.
He's brought us to the brink of nuclear war.
But instead, this happened. So much for that nuclear catastrophe.
Obstructed justice at the FBI.
Firing the director of the FBI, James Comey, was not obstruction, nor was it impeachable.
He's taken money from foreign governments.
Nope. I covered this topic extensively in a previous video. The link is in the description.
Impeaching and removing this president is something that the American people are demanding.
Blah, blah, blah. Look, the majority of Democratic voters would love to see President Trump impeached, and they don't need to be convinced of that. But instead, the first 15 minutes of the broadcast were dedicated to bitching about Trump. It's like going on a first date, and all your date wants to do is complain about how bad their ex hurt them. But then when you ask your date if your taxes will go up, they refuse to give you a straight answer.
You have not specified how you're going to pay for the most expensive plan, Medicare for All. Will you raise taxes on the middle class to pay for it, yes or no?
So I have made clear what my principles are here, and that is costs will go up for the wealthy and for big corporations, and for hardworking middle-class families, costs will go down. So let me be clear on this. Costs will go up for the wealthy, they will go up for big corporations, and for middle-class families, they will go down.
This is basically a rerun of her performance from the last debate, and Pete Buttigieg was not having it.
A yes or no question that didn't get a yes or no answer. Look, this is why people here in the Midwest are so frustrated with Washington in general and Capitol Hill in particular. Your signature, Senator, is to have a plan for everything, except this.
But of course, he's right, so good job, Mayor Pete. You got her on the ropes.
I've laid out the basic principles.
Okay, Grandma, you got this. All you have to do is say the word taxes.
Costs are gonna go up.
Never mind. So the big question before the debate was how Joe Biden would handle questions from the moderators about his son, Hunter Biden. While Biden was vice president, Hunter was serving on the board of Burisma Holdings, a Ukrainian energy company. Vice President Biden threatened to withhold $1 billion in loan guarantees to the Ukraine unless Viktor Shokin, the prosecutor general of Ukraine, was fired. Shokin at the time was investigating Burisma Holdings. For the record, I'm not saying that either Biden did anything illegal, but at the very least, the optics are really bad.
Mr. Vice President, as you said, your son Hunter today gave an interview, admitted that he made a mistake and showed poor judgment by serving on that board in Ukraine. Did you make a mistake by letting him? You were the point person on Ukraine at the time, if you can answer.
Look, my son's statement speaks for itself. I did my job. I never discussed a single thing with my son about anything having to do with Ukraine. No one has indicated I have.
Well, no one except his son. According to this piece in The New Yorker, Hunter recalled that his father discussed Burisma with him just once. Dad said, "I hope you know what you're doing," and I said I do. No one actually believes that it was just once, but whatever.
I never discussed a single thing with my son about anything having to do with Ukraine.
Then there's Bernie Sanders, who had a heart attack just 2 weeks before the debate.
You're 78 years old and you just had a heart attack. How do you reassure Democratic voters that you're up to the stress of the presidency?
Well, let me invite you all to a major rally we're having in Queens, New York, BernieSanders.com. We're going to have a special guest.
Ooh, your doctor?
And we are going to be mounting a vigorous campaign all over this country.
Yet before the debate, Sanders said that he planned to slow down his pace on the campaign trail. So which is it, Bernie? Also, what happens if Bernie or any of these other candidates win the election? God forbid that something happens to them and their terrible vice presidential pick becomes leader of the free world.
I have been out all around this country. I've done 140 town halls now, been to 27 states and Puerto Rico. Should have done 70,000 selfies, which must be the new measure of democracy.
70,000 selfies? Wow, make her the president.
When I called on Twitter to suspend Donald Trump's account.
Yes, finally something important.
This is a matter of corporate responsibility. Twitter should be held accountable and shut down that site. It is a matter of safety and corporate accountability.
Stop. For Senator Harris to even be wasting time complaining about this is bizarre. As far as I'm concerned, this should disqualify her from ever becoming president. Anyway, because there were so many candidates participating in the debate, CNN and the New York Times, in their infinite wisdom, decided not to let the candidates make opening or closing statements. This made room for more pressing questions.
Last week, Ellen DeGeneres was criticized after she and former President George W. Bush were seen laughing together at a football game. So in that spirit, we'd like you to tell us about a friendship that you've had that would surprise us, what impacts it's had on you and your beliefs.
Climate change, trade policy, immigration? Nope. Ellen.
This is the 6th debate we have had in this presidential cycle.
No, Kamala, it's only the 4th debate of the cycle. It only feels like the 6th. And with that said, I would rather talk about anything else other than the debate right now.
Pronouns are a fascinating part of modern culture.
Oh, what did you do, Andrew?
So when I introduce myself, I generally say, "Hi, my name's Sam Brinton. I use they and them as my pronouns, and I serve as head of advocacy and government affairs for the Trevor Project."
First off, when I meet someone, I generally forget their name in 5 minutes, so asking me to remember your preferred pronouns is a stretch. But if I do remember your name, I will refer to you by your name, not your pronoun. Also, if someone unironically comes up to me and part of their introduction is announcing their pronouns, I will walk away. That's a joke. Probably. And to be clear, that doesn't mean that I won't use your preferred pronouns. I'm not a monster.
It's also really important to recognize that pronouns change sometimes.
What?
Many of us will not always have the same pronouns because our gender is changing.
Oh, I'm so confused right now. What happens if you change your gender realization and I get it wrong? Does that mean that every time that we interact that you're going to give me a preferred pronoun update? But I get it. The whole point of going out of your way to state your preferred pronouns is because they might not be obvious to people. But with that said, why do these presidential candidates have pronouns listed on their Twitter bios? The funny part is that everyone who put this in their Twitter bio is going to be stuck with it forever. Because if any of them remove it, critics will rightfully accuse them of pandering and not being an ally. Also in the news, Kamala Harris just dropped the pronouns from her Twitter bio. Anyway, going forward, the debate should be shorter and a lot more manageable, as several candidates are in danger of not qualifying to appear on the debate stage. Tulsi, come back! As always, thanks for watching, sharing, and hitting that like button. Thank you so much for trusting me with the news. Wang Gang Nation, now over 230,000 subscribers.